Welcome to Mindly Way, where we explore life philosophies to grow and find the right path. Get ready to listen for an inner journey. Now, as far as I can see, the basic mistake is that we've invented this wonderful system of language and calculation, and that it is at once too simple to deal with the complexity of the world. And also, we are liable to confuse that system of symbols with the world itself, just as we confuse, say, money with wealth. A lot of people are in business to make money instead of wealth. When they make the money, they don't know what to do with it. And so, in the same way, we confuse happiness with status, and we confuse ourselves as living organisms, which are one with this whole universe, with something we call our personality. Now, what is our personality? Our personality is what we call our image of ourselves, and also our thought about yourselves, our idea of ourselves. This is the person, in other words, what people meet and understand. And what I understand, as Alan Watts, is a big act, which is not really me, because in the image of Alan Watts, there are not all my unconscious processes, both psychological and physical. The construction of my brain is not contained in the concept Alan Watts, and the concept Alan Watts does not contain the inseparable relationships which I have with all the rest of the universe. And therefore, that concept is a fraud, and when it's mistaken for the real me, there's a confusion, because if somebody says to be Alan Watts, do something about it. The concept Alan Watts can't do anything, in other words, because it's only a concept. You can't make it lift a weight, just as 3 is a concept. 3, the number you can't make, just plain 3 do anything. So also, you can't wrap up parcels with the equator. It's a useful imaginary line, but it can't do anything. But we all feel that this concept of ourselves, which we call our personality or our ego, can do something because we think it really exists. And I'll tell you why we think it exists. What happens when if I were to say to you now, look hard at the television screen, really look at it. What do you do as distinct from just watching it in the ordinary way when you say now, I really got to see that? What do you do? Notice that you tighten muscles all around here, that you frown a little, you clench your teeth perhaps. Now, what has that got to do with seeing anything clearly? Absolutely nothing to do with it. Same thing when you listen carefully. Now listen, catch everything that's said. Will you start tightening up around your ears? That has nothing to do with hearing. Evidently, when teachers yell at us to pay attention in class when we were young, we tense up in different ways to see or hear better, to concentrate, or to will ourselves to do something that is supposed to be hard to do. This results in a habitual tension throughout the entire body that is present almost constantly. And that sensation of needless tension is like the tangible sense that we hang this concept of I onto. That feeling that the concept is not as. People say you can't change human nature overnight. You're asking us to give up the ego, which is the most difficult of all things to do actually, because the ego doesn't exist. But of course, if you try to give up, you will feel cut off from everything, alienated, scared of life and death. So, what needs to happen is we have to return to a savior of our own life, which is the way we really are an organism functioning in terms of the whole environment, with the whole environment instead of this funny little separate personality, say. You cannot make yourself loving or unselfish, but you must be that way if we are to give nature control over our direction. In other words, we must let go of ourselves. And this cannot be accomplished by anything we call acting voluntarily, or even by accepting things. You are not that kind of separate ego or personality. Rather, you are merely an idea based on a false feeling. When it comes down to it, this is shocking news for the human race, because you are only creating chaos by trying to make things seem as they are. You're trying to straighten out a wiggly world. And no wonder you're in trouble, so you can't do anything, so you can't transform yourself. And what can you do? What happens then if you actually realize you've come to a dead end? And the human race has come to a dead end, in my opinion. What then? Commit suicide? Or is there something else? What happens when you just wait? There's nothing you can do. You watch, and all you see is what goes on. That is happening of itself. You're breathing, the wind is blowing, the trees are waving, your blood is circulating, your nerves are tingling. It's all going on of itself. But do you know that's you? That's the real you, the you that goes on of itself. It's not the symbol, it's not the person, it's you that's happening. As when you breathe, yes, you can get the feeling that I am breathing by shoving your breath. But your breath goes on day in and day out without your doing anything about it, or even thinking of it, the same way your brain is functioning without your forcing it. So when you come to a dead end, and we are individually and socially now in 1971 at a dead end, this is the moment of which it is said man's extremity is God's opportunity, because we have to stop. And when we stop, we find a world that is happening rather than being done, being shoved. And that happening, as distinct from doing, is our fundamental self. And our fundamental self is not something just inside the skin, it's everything around us with which we connect. When you look out of your eyes at nature happening out there, you're looking at you. I'm not going to say what we should do from then on, but simply that before we think of doing anything in this critical situation, we realize the completely illusory nature of the beings that we think we are, and get back again to the beings that we really are, which includes all this outside world no longer left outside.